Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. David, thank you very much for that introduction. He's absolutely right. So this morning I had a large, so much caffeine, large caramel latte, 2 sugar-free Red Bulls. The human body is allowed 400 milligrams of caffeine a day on average. Pretty sure there's enough in me to like kill a horse. So I am gonna press that and hopefully it works. It doesn't. Okay, it's going great. I'm going to give you my energy in return. I would like yours, please. The way that this talk is going to go will be entirely dictated by the answer to the question on the next slide. Okay, so it could be really good or really naff, but the question is this. Are my people here? Just want a yes or a no, or some sort of noise. Yeah. Or one of you, 2 of you. Amazing, right. This is how you understand if you're my people, okay? If you refer to minority cashiers in the supermarkets or off-license as boss man, if you call your elders auntie or uncle, even if you're not blood related, if you've got just random cousins, all 3 brown people in the room, we're probably related. But most importantly, if you season your food, if you wash your chicken, and most importantly, if you've washed your legs this morning, ladies and gentlemen, you are my people. So I'm going to ask you again, and I'd like a little bit more noise. Jesus, are my people in the room? Amazing, thank you. So I knew that I was going to be the first one after the morning break. Everyone's had like coffee and stuff, and is dead tired. I can see mad tired faces in the room. So before the talk starts, I'm going to run a bit of a competition, just to make sure you're awake and engaged. 2, actually. The first one is very sneakily during the break. I was in this room. And if you've seen me do this before, say nothing or I will hurt you. Underneath one of your seats, I've hidden a prize. I'll give you 10 seconds to find it. If you find it, you win. Amazing. Your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, amazing. The winner is over here. There is no prize. You're now all engaged. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sorry. So you're definitely awake. Right, let's start in terms of competition. When it comes to your attention, I think right now you are there, off the charts. Please stay there for me. That's super important. I want you to watch this video that I'm about to play. If you've seen this before, don't say anything. If you haven't, what I want you to do is just follow the instructions on the video. You need to count something that happens, and then I'll ask you for the answer afterwards, okay? So press this. Hopefully it should work.
How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
Okay, everyone got that? Who thinks they know the answer? Just put your hand up. Okay, Brill. What's the answer? 13. Any advances on 13? Okay. 15. Who said 15? Okay. I'll show you the answer now.
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
So, like the end of that video says, when it comes to this type of topic, I don't think that you can fix something that you're not aware of. And that's why I, genuinely believe that the wrong people are in this room. They're all listening to Google talk about AI, it's lies. So, let's move on. British people, notoriously bad at bigging ourselves up, so allow me 30 seconds to do that. I'm Azeem. Thank you very much for choosing to be in this room with me today. You could have been anywhere in the world, and you're here with me. As an aside, before I carry on, please do me a favour and give a massive round of applause to everybody who's organised and put this event on today, because it is incredible. Thank you. We've got a laser, amazing. That is me on the main stage at Brighton SEO in front of 3,000 people. That's my very shiny head doing a talk for SEMrush Global Marketing Day, and it was streamed to 80,000 people, of which Anthony was a co-panelist. That's me at a PPC conference, but more importantly, I host my own podcast. It's called the Azeem Digital Asks podcast, which is there. I talk about all those topics, but what I think sets my podcast apart from everybody else, because everybody's got a podcast, haven't they? I prioritize guests who I consider to be marginalized, so whether that be people from the LGBTQ plus community, whether that's women, or whether that's people of color. If you identify as marginalized, and there's no like nice way to say it, but most podcasts are white guys talking to white guys, I would love to talk to you. And it's rated amongst the, I'm going to get this wrong, but hopefully not. It's rated amongst the top 20 globally and the top 10 in the UK, because we talk about absolutely everything. So I don't care whether you've got 30 or like 3,000 followers. Hit me up, let's have a chat, we can make it happen. But, in fact, here's an example. I did a podcast episode with Andy Jarvis. If you want to scan that, we talk all about this subject in much more detail because 20 minutes is not a lot of time. You can get access to that episode right there. Here's what you're here for, hopefully, and not just here to see the other two and want this weird Maltese-looking guy off the stage. We're going to talk about digital marketing, quality, and alignment. So, the first part, facts. I'm going to give you loads of facts today, but hopefully what you've taken away from the first couple of minutes is that I like to inject a little bit of fun into it because I think this is a very hard topic, and up until now, there's not been a lot of change. I'm hoping that injecting a slight bit of humour might help that. So, some facts. 60% of the LGBTQ plus community don't feel safe enough to be out at work. 7% of ads in the UK put people of colour as the sole or main protagonist. That is a massive number. So 84% of consumers think it's important for brands to promote diversity and inclusion. That's 84% of your consumers, your clients' consumers, whoever. Huge, huge number. And I'm pretty sure when I've done this talk before, people's heads sort of prick up at that point. When it comes to minority ethnic groups, things that I'm more comfortable speaking about, and you'll see that I lean more towards that throughout this talk. The disposable income of people in that group is £252 billion per annum. On its own, that is an incredible amount. You might have seen, or you may not have seen, within the last week, there was someone who was in Bed Bath & Beyond in America, bought loads of stuff, and as he went to the till, they called the police on him because they suspected that he was doing something shady. So what I absolutely loved about that, and if you've seen it, I'll stop talking in a minute. What I absolutely loved about that, this video went viral, massive BDE, brought everything, wasn't happy that they called the police on him because they suspected him, and then just returned the lot. And I was like, what a guy. Let's move on. That is projected to reach 3.06 trillion by 2031, an absolutely incredible number. This is the point where I want to pause, and I think there's maybe like 5 of us in the room. Those 5 people of colour, I want you to look to the left, look to the right. We have got money. Anyway, let's move on. In the C-suite, women are more likely to be sacked than men, but that's even if they make it there. I personally probably know a handful of women who are in the C-suite. That thing, I think that I was going to swear that, oh fuck it, that shit needs to change. Studies show that a male's confidence is assumed, whereas a woman's is earned. If I speak exclusively about myself, it's directly linked to the amount of caffeine that's in my body, which is why it's like up there right now. This is the bit where I want to pause and talk about digital marketing. I'm going to run another competition now, but you don't have to do anything. I just want you to do this. Think of the top 5 agencies or brands in the industry today. Just have a think who they are. And channeling my inner psychic, I think this is what your brain looks like, entirely white. Most people that you're thinking of are white agencies, generally male-led. You're probably not thinking about many women, and if you are, I'm fairly certain that they're not women of colour. And that's where I think this needs to change. When it comes to talk like this, you might be thinking at this point, right, I want actual examples. I want to see people that are doing this. I want to see people that have made a success out of it. I don't want just stats thrown at me. This is where I did a little bit of research. So this is one of the most common examples of campaigns that are doing really well. This is Dove's Show Us campaign, more women who look like Beatrice from Brazil. What this campaign is, women-led. So both in front of and behind the camera, women are ever present. Actual diversity, so there's no stage sets, nothing is made up, no artificial scenarios, and most importantly, there's like no digital edits. I'm fairly certain that if you didn't see the video about the guy who got called on in Bed Bath & Beyond, Kim Kardashian within the last week has been trying desperately to remove a picture of herself that is completely unedited because she doesn't like it. So don't be that person that goes on Twitter and searches it and then also retweets it so the whole world can see. I'm joking, absolutely do it. This is what the adverts look like. I think these are amazing. I personally would love to see more adverts that look like this and like less airbrushing and everything else. But there will always be that one detractor in the room who will be thinking, did it actually work? It looks great, but did it work? So this is the brand value of Dove worldwide, and thank you to Startup Talkie for putting it into a graph. As you can see, from when they launched that campaign to when it rose in millions, the value of their brand has actually gone up. So when you think back to the amount of disposable income that people have from all groups, doing stuff like this, giving customers what they actually want, it will make you even more money. Here's an example then of what not to do. So you've seen what to do, and here's an example of what not to do. Just by nodding, how many people have seen this? This was like a couple of months back. Levi has said that they're going to use artificial intelligence generated models to increase diversity. I think this is horrible. Speaking as a person of colour, for example, it makes me think that I'll never be good enough to do stuff like this, or people who look like me are never ever going to be good enough to do stuff like this. So the advances of AI and how you can generate new images just by putting in a simple prompt, I think is pretty bad, because there's been loads of studies on it where you could type in, for example, doctor, and it would be white guys. Type in scientist and it'd be white guys. There's not a huge amount of women and there's not a huge amount of people of colour. But I will shout out Adobe suites of artificial intelligence generated models, because if you've ever used it, you get 4 images back from a prompt, and at least 2 of them will be some sort of diverse models, either women or either people of colour. So that's what people should be doing more of. Then it comes to equality, and then we can't talk anymore until we define equality. So I won't read this out, but the idea of equality is that whole first 5 letters, the state of being equal. And I don't think that we're there yet. I did a study a couple of years ago, over 2 years, where I looked at people who from ethnic minority backgrounds, and I wanted to see that if they feel that their own identity has had an impact on their career opportunities this year. So when I first did the study, 62% of people said, yes, I believe my identity has had an impact on that. And then in the second year, the number went up. So I was surprised that the number was so high in year 1, but then in the second year, I was even more surprised that that number had gone up. I can't begin to tell you, because I can only partially understand how hard it must be to feel like just waking up and being yourself is not enough to be on the same playing field as everybody else. Then it comes to stats like this. 1.5% of the senior leaders in the UK are black. That is horrible. I can't believe that number is so low. In London, there's a 20% unadjusted ethnicity pay gap, the highest in the UK. Based on your ethnicity, you could be paid less, 20% less than your counterpart who are probably sitting across the office from you. If you're not born in the UK, there's a 10.4% pay penalty for non-UK born ethnic minorities, and I won't get too political, but the current government are really trying to make that number incredibly higher, ourselves. 4.1% pay penalty for UK born ethnic minorities, which again, if you're a person of colour in this room, for example, look around in your office, I guarantee there will be people that are paid more than you for probably doing the same job, which, let's be real, that it's not fair and it's not right. But that being said, I'll come on to this in a minute. So there's an £8,000 difference between the lowest female earners and white British men. These numbers, I think, are quite hard to read. So you can see at the start why I've injected a little bit of fun in there. Whether you are, so the 2 areas of diversity that I've leaned into are women, because I've spoken to a lot of women through my podcast, and a person of colour, because I can speak about my own experience. It's hard to see that these numbers here create massive gaps in wealth, generational wealth, let's be honest, and the way the current situation is at the minute with the cost of living, everything is absolutely ruined. But with that being said, we actually have solved diversity because we've got a brown Prime Minister. So it's done. That's the end of my talk. See you later. I'm joking, it's not. With that being said, trickle-down equality, it's not a thing. So just by having a person of colour in your office isn't enough, and just by shoving one in the boardroom, typically what happens is those people will be given like a DEI sort of role, but in my experience, the people that I've spoken to that do this, they don't get the budget to do what they want. It's literally a tick box exercise. And speaking from my own experience about being in a group in a previous job for diversity and inclusion, it's just literally, let's put them in the corner, give them a title, and they're not going to actually do anything that's going to impact change. As a very quick example, I went into a business as an external. They asked me to have a look at everything that they're doing. And me, being the arsehole that I am, I went to them and I said, you claim to represent people of all ages, of all genders, from all over the world, but your entire board is white. So your audience will be looking at you and thinking, you don't represent me. Look at those numbers that I showed you earlier on. You can see that at least 85% of them do want to see diversity in their ads. Here's how we can talk about being better, some actionable stuff that I think that we can do to help move the industry forward. And this is where the rest of this talk is where I think the people in this room like yourselves can go away and make a genuine impact and difference, because I think stuff like this happens. You go to conferences and you'll see entirely white lineups, and it might be white guys talking to white guys. There's not a nice way to say it. Or you'll go to events or webinars, it'll be stuff like this. So I'm going to give you some actual stuff to take away, mull over, and talk to the people that matter. The talks like this and the two that follow will only have an impact between you talking to other people about them, because you've chosen to be here. I believe you've already got an interest. So when it comes to leadership, most leaderships are being paid a bonus. I think those bonuses should be actually tied to D&I initiatives. So if people of colour or women, for example, are not being paid fairly, then neither should the leadership. It's a fact. The cost of living crisis, there's not enough time for me to talk about it, disproportionately affects people from marginalised backgrounds. This is where this is important. So we talk about stuff like the gender pay gap, which I'll move on to shortly, but companies, I believe, should start to measure and release this information yearly. The first year, I think, it will be bad, it will look bad, but growth comes from getting out of your comfort zone. So mention that, release it. If it goes up in year 2, great, talk about what you did. If it goes down, talk about what you're going to do. A good example of this are Adobe. I just happened upon their website while using their analytics. I saw a DEI section, I clicked it because I was interested. It was either 16 or 18 pages long. Literally, they tell you from the lowest levels of employment to the highest levels how diverse they are, broken down by numbers and percentages. You don't have to do that, but you've got to start somewhere. This is where I think wage equity schemes should come in. I think women and people of colour should be being paid on par with their white counterparts. I separate those two because that's how the industry works. Generally, I think it's around November time. It will trend on social media that this is the day now from the rest of the year that women are effectively working for free because there's such a big gap between them. We also talk about the race pay gap, but I don't think we talk about the two in connection. So for example, if you are a black woman, you're already being paid less than your white counterparts, but you're already going to be paid less again because you're both black and a woman. And this is why I think the race pay gap should be talked about a lot more. If you're really interested in this stuff, genuinely go out and read how the cost of living crisis is affecting people from marginalised backgrounds. When it comes to conferences, I think they should diversify their lineups. This one has done a fantastic job, which is why I should give them a round of applause before. But also pay speakers. I'm fortunate enough to do this a lot, and I'm fortunate enough to get paid to do what I do. I don't always talk about diversity. I talk about other actual stuff like marketing, things that you can do better to improve your marketing. When I first started out, it was, can you come and talk about diversity? I'm an actual marketer. I've done stuff. I've got results for my clients and my business. I want to talk about that. I don't just want to talk about my experiences of being a brown person. When it comes to paying people, though, generally in my experience, I've found that you don't get paid to speak at conferences unless you ask for it. Some conferences don't pay speakers because they don't make a profit. That's absolutely fine. There was once, and I'm not going to name them because I never ever name them. If you go on my website, you'll see that I've done studies galore. There was one conference where I asked them if every speaker was being paid the same, and if women were not being paid the same as men, I was happy for my fee to be reduced so that women could be paid equally. And they were like, why are you doing this? And I was like, well, if you don't, then I will, because I think it's important, and people aren't conditioned to ask for it, especially British. We're very, I don't know what the word, humble, modest. We just don't do it. So basically, if you organise a conference and you're not from Connective 3, pay people. When it comes to hiring, if you're hiring for marketing roles right now, don't just shove the classic sentence at the bottom of job descriptions. We're an equal opportunities employer. We want to hear from people from all backgrounds. It's literally just, someone like me would look at that and just wouldn't be bothered by it. Real, actual, interesting job descriptions include things like, we care about characteristic A, B, C, D, and E. We want to hear from everybody. But most importantly, what most job descriptions don't do, I'm sad enough, so when I've done research for talks like this, I've set up an alert for like junior digital PR roles, right the way through to head or director of digital PR. I set up alerts for this and I see they don't include the salary information. You cannot pay your bills with vibes, okay? There's no point going to, it's true. There's no point going through a job interview process. In some cases, they're 3, 4, 5 steps long, only to get to the end and find out it's less than what you're on. This is the point where you've got to be a bit anal and say, like, what are you paying? If you get to stage 2 or 3, what are you paying? If they ask you for a piece of work, they're going to pay you for that piece of work, trust me. B, ask them what they're going to pay for the role, because that's super important. Move. And this is the point where I talk about getting comfortable with paying, because a lot of this stuff is difficult, right? People aren't conditioned to ask for paying when they're speaking at conferences. People aren't conditioned to ask for a pay rise or whatever. I guarantee you, there's always one person in every office, right, who is probably worse than you at doing the same job, but being paid more. This is where that pain comes in. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to say, please pay me more than what I do. I'm fairly certain that I'm being paid less than person X, Y, and Z. It is difficult, but the absolute worst thing that can happen is that they'll just say no. Nobody's going to, pull out a gun on you and be like, get out of the office. The last part is when it comes to alignment. So let's go back to the talk title, Aligning Digital Marketing with Equality. I believe things like this, educational opportunities, more people like us from marginalised backgrounds should have opportunities to go like this. There are certain conferences that will charge you £1,400, £1,500, £1,600 to get there. Most agencies or brands, they're not prepared to invest that in a person, because the average tenure of a marketing role is 2 to 3 years. You probably won't see that return back. A conference like Brighton SEO, for example, will do this. Their courses are a certain cost. They know that people from marginalised backgrounds can't afford it, so they'll offer scholarship schemes. The hardest thing that you have to do is fill in a form. Then they'll reach out to you and say, great, you've got a place, get down, let's make it happen. Pay equity, I've talked about this already, and also minding the race gap. This here is honestly the most best thing that's come out on Twitter in a number of years, is this. People get absolutely blasted by this gender pay gap, but I think there probably should be like a separate one that comes out now, where we talk about people or brands who literally just shove a rainbow on their logo, and then at the start of next month we'll remove it, whilst also not paying those people from marginalised backgrounds an equal wage. Accessibility, there's absolutely not enough time for me to talk about accessibility, but I will give you a couple of brief notes on that. And then, like I said, diverse representation in your ads and stuff. I won't go on those, but I will leave you with a couple of things. Like I said, your customers and your audience, they want to see people of colour in their adverts, or people from marginalised backgrounds in their adverts and in your messaging. Inclusive language, I'll hang on this. I won't read any of these out, and hopefully you can see a screen and can see these. But there are lots of terms that I think we should probably revisit and not look at using in our adverts. Like I said, I won't read any of them out for fear of causing offence, but when someone who's got a massive active interest in this area, see these, even I've thought, wow, I probably shouldn't be using these in my copy. I can see a couple of people taking pictures. I will share the slides afterwards. When it comes to mental condition and ability terms, again, on the left are probably terms that you shouldn't be using in your copy or on your website. We should move on from those and look at alternative terms. And then when it comes to ethnicity, race, and nationality, again, on the left, reconsider those and use the ones on the right. It's not hard to make. I think, for example, me personally, I used to use BAME all the time until I had a very serious conversation with someone who was like, you shouldn't put all of us in like one bucket. Black people are inherently different to Asian people, for example. We each deserve our own identities. In summary, then, this is it. You can't fix something that you're not aware of. I genuinely think the people in this room have an active interest in this. So use what you've learned today to spread the message. Talk to people in your office and say, I saw a really great series of talks, not one, because the next two are going to be belting. Spread that message. Your customers, like I said, I've said it to death, they want you and your clients to promote more equality. That includes in your staff as well as your ads. And then trickle down equality. It's not a thing in marketing either. I've said it before and I've said it in the past. If you look at my website, I'll show you studies where better decisions can be made 87% of time when you activate multiple facets of diversity. So that's age, gender, location, education. Put them all together. Who doesn't want to make better decisions near enough 100% of the time? That's pretty much it. I really hope you've enjoyed the talk. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn or you can find me on Twitter. It's at Azeem Digital on Twitter, or just search for me. I'm the guy that can't buy shirts that fit his arms properly. And ultimately, you are here at the very, very top. We've got a brilliant talk next, okay? Please keep your energy for them. It's going to be amazing. And a massive, massive thank you very much for being here for me.